what she wanted out of visits on the whole was to be entertained, as it were, to be taken out of herself a bit, but not in a crazy way. And so there were certain people who were better at that than others, and those were the people that sort of came.
We always had a standing joke that for as long as she overachieved in every way, I didn't have to, because we had to keep the cosmic balance, you see. So I could be as lazy as get out if she was going to be an overachiever. And that suited me fine, I'm indolent by nature. And once she was lying on the settee, I felt duty-bound to do more, which she thought was very funny.
Yeah.
Ruth didn't have to say anything, you knew. She could, and Harry has this, and I know Harriet looked at me and I just thought, yeah, I know what this is about, and I could just tell, I knew that she wouldn't have long left, and I just felt that it was a privilege, really, to be there for her, and for them, to support them, really. They wanted me to be there, and...
She told us when she was ready to go, and, it didn't express itself as fear or self-pity. It was more of a kind of irritation with our collective failure to get ourselves organised. She was very Ruth right to the end.
And on the day Ruth died, Nick phoned you, and you contacted me, and we had a great need to get together and talk about Ruth, didn't we? And we went for a walk.
We did. We were in fact in Corbridge, where we'd walked before with Ruth and gone for coffee afterwards. And we went for scones at your house with the children. The children were playing in the garden, and that's just typical, really, of how we worked around. Our friendship worked around with children and families, and whatever was happening was incorporated into it.
Those two final weekends feel like incredibly privileged moments to have been part of, and not only in terms of relationship with Ruth and with Nick, but also with Mary and with Harriet.
I gave her a foot massage one morning when she was in bed, so I got all lotions and potions out, so she liked that. She had lovely feet, painted toenails, that was nice. But I wish I had done more for her, but she didn't want any fuss. Don't fuss over me, she would say, and she'd always thank you when you went up the stairs with a tray of food. Oh, thank you, Lainey. Is your back all right today? How's your foot? So always thinking of other people, and still have this big smile. That's what I remember. Big smile.
She maintained her sense of humour right to the end, and she could joke. She was a very, very tough woman.
All the time she was ill, we would do things like we laid out all the baby clothes and sorted out which ones were for. She wanted to hand on to Sam for his baby, and that was lovely. And talked about the children when they were little and what they were like as babies, and got all the knitwear out and laid it all out. And then we got all her wool out, because I was going to knit, and I have knitted for Sam a farm. And we made it from all the scraps of wool that I had in my wool bag and she had in her wool bag. And we laid it all out and chose all the bits of wool, because they're a very green couple, Sam and Carolyn. So we thought it needed to be made of stuff we already had.
Seeing her when she was ill was always difficult, and she did just physically fade away, but her spirit was very strong. And I think she did try to leave everybody as they walked out of the room with something for them to hang on to, make them feel this wasn't a sort of an unrelentingly negative experience, which in reality, many people felt it would be. And I guess from my perspective, we talked about regulation of doctors. I'm very heavily involved in the regulation of doctors, and I know Ruth felt that maybe there required some shaking up of that as related to general practice. I have some responsibilities for regulating surgeons and hospital medicine, but nothing to do with GPs. But she left me with a sort of parting message, I suppose, that when I move on from what I'm doing now to try and help shake up general practice a bit, would be something I could get my teeth stuck into, leaving with a sort of lifetime's mission, and I'll do what I can on that one.
The last 6 months were again awful times, but kind of great times, and just sense of getting to know each other, even more.
We all went, and it was a joy to see her. You see, normally you go very worried about going to see sick people for one reason or another, but Ruthie was really quite an emotional charge, really, because so impressed with her. To think that a daughter of mine could have put on such a fantastic... It was obviously a performance. She was made up of what she was going to do, and she did it. She was going to die properly.
It was lovely to be there, but it was also lovely to leave. Well, you don't want to watch your daughter die. But I was there when she died. Not in the room, but in the house. Harriet was with her.
There was a kind of infinity of tenderness that existed between us. And just a sense that she was never better, and we were never better as a couple than during those 6 months. Joy by its nature, it's kind of doesn't have much, gravity to it. And grief has a lot of weight. So you need a lot of joy to balance the grief. But there was a heck of a lot there.
There's antimony, arsenic, aluminum, selenium, and hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen and rhenium, and nickel, neodymium, neptunium, germanium, and iron, americium, ruthenium, uranium, europium, zirconium, lutetium, vanadium, and lanthanum, and osmium, and astatine, and radium, and golden protactinium, and indium, and gallium, and iodine, and thorium, and thulium, and thallium. There's yttrium, ytterbium, actinium, rubidium, and boron, gadolinium, niobium, iridium, and strontium, and silicon, and silver, and samarium, and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. There's holmium and helium and hafnium and erbium and phosphorus and francium and fluorine and terbium and manganese and mercurium, molybdenum, magnesium, dysprosium and scandium and cerium and cesium and lead, praseodymium and platinum, plutonium, palladium, promethium, potassium, polonium and tantalum, technetium, titanium, tellurium and cadmium and calcium and chromium and curium. There's sulfur, californium, and fermium, berkelium, and also mendelevium, einsteinium, nobelium, and argon, krypton, neon, radon, xenon, zinc, and rhodium, and chlorine, carbon, cobalt, copper, tungsten, tin, and sodium. These are the only ones of which the news has come to Harvard, and there may be many others, but they haven't been discovered.